Hello, my name is Frank McCarran and I'm the Regional Sales Manager in Scotland. So we're going back to see our prospective customer, having made an appointment a couple of days ago. However, at this point I think it's worth setting the scene. When Payment Sense came to the marketplace all those years ago, which is not that long ago actually, George and Jan asked themselves the question, what can we do as a company that will differentiate us from the marketplace? And in the previous presentation, you heard me say a lot of merchant services companies, if not all, are in the marketplace based upon price. The greatest example of all is that price comparison sites exist for merchants and the public in general based upon the current price of a unit of electricity or gas, and therefore the cheapest price tends to win. Well, salespeople sell on value and close on price, and Payment Sense has a value structure which allows us to do so. And here's how we do it. So again, before you begin, this is a framework of how to pitch to a prospective customer. Any professional salesperson will always know what potential objections exist before the presentation is made, and all questions that they ask lead them down a path knowing what the likely outcome will be. Because in reality, there's only one reason why people do not buy, and that is price. However, if you sell on price, all you get is objections. And this framework allows you to minimize objections, maximize commissions, enhance referrals, and cross-sell products. So, first of all, you walk back in. Hello again, Mr. or Mrs. Merchant. Frank McCarran here again from Payment Sense. How are you? Small talk is basically all about personality. What's been happening? Did you have a nice weekend? If the weekend is in between. Small talk, general ice break, and then you can move on. So, at our appointment set, we asked for a statement. So, Mr. Merchant, do you have your statement which shows your typical monthly turnover through your chip and PIN machine? Now, the golden rule is this. Well, there are two golden rules. Firstly, do not pitch without a statement. All you're doing is trying to play darts with the dartboard covered in newspaper. You are most likely going to miss. Do not pitch without a statement. By all means, reappoint and go back to see them, stressing the fact that they have to have a statement. If the merchant at this point wants to drag you in to a discussion regarding rates, please do not do so. It is very tempting, but please do not do so. The statement itself allows you to then ask open and leading questions with the merchant regarding the service levels that they've had before. For example, with WorldPay, how long have you been with WorldPay for, Mr. Merchant? And depending upon the terminal that you see sitting in front of you, you'll have a reasonable guess through experience as to how long that has been. Please tell me, what was the route that took you to be a customer of WorldPay? It may well be that they bank with an affiliate bank, such as the Royal Bank of Scotland or NatWest in England. It may well be they've come through an ISO. All of these things will become apparent from the statement. It's also worth building value by discussing qualifying rates, non-qualifying rates. Do you know what your rates are? Has anybody ever explained to you how this statement is put together? 80% of the time, merchants do not really understand what this statement says in its full entirety. They will know certain parts of it. They'll know what the terminal rental is because it quite clearly states it. But the entire statement is a confusing issue, especially if it comes from one of the other providers, such as Global Payments. We can find that quite daunting. However, it's worth having a general discussion with them regarding the statement, and at that point, you know that you're starting to create a conversation that allows you to build value into what you're trying to do. Quite simply, closing at the end by saying, you now know something more than you did before. It will often tell you this is the case, and they'll thank you for it. It's often worth having the discussion regarding the length of time it took for the terminal to arrive on site. In reality, merchants are not frequent switchers, therefore the chances are that the terminal they have is the first one they've ever had. We know from our experience, as you do from your training, that it can take sometimes between 4 to 6 weeks for terminals to arrive from our competitors. whereas we take 3 to 5 days. So the smart salesperson will ask the question, how do you feel about the fact that it took 4 to 6 weeks for your terminal to arrive? Did you feel that you were market disadvantaged if one of your competitors selling exactly the same merchandise as you were had a customer who wished to pay for credit cards? Would you be able to take that business? The answer would be no. So therefore, without realising it, they've put themselves at a disadvantage because of the service level. They may most likely have installed the terminal themselves, which will have involved some time out of their day. Not a bad service, you could ask, but perhaps if the terminal had come within 3 to 5 days, would that have been better for your business? They're always going to say yes. If somebody had installed it for you, would that have been better for your business? They're always going to say yes. So very quickly, we're starting to show them values without actually selling the payment sense fast turnaround. This is what you're going to use at the end when you close. Next, you want to ask for permission to pitch. There are a number of ways you can do this, but a good lead-in is by saying, you remember I left you my flyer when I was here last. Did you get a chance to check us out on Trustpilot? Irrespective of the answer, the pitch will not change. If they say, yes, I did, oh, absolutely fantastic. Well, let me tell you all about Payment Sense, fill in the blanks for you, and at that point, I'll ask you what you think about us. Now, let me ask you the question, what merchant does not want to have their opinion asked of them? They all do. If they say they did not get a chance to check us out in Trustpilot, the same conversation occurs. Don't you worry about that, Mr. Merchant. I'll tell you all about it, and then I'll ask you what you think. Because your opinion of us is probably more important than the opinion of a customer, because there's a reason why they are customers, and there may be a reason why you're not. So let me do that, tell you all about us, and then ask you what you think. Is that okay with you? They will all say yes. The Payment Sense demonstration is the most crucial part of your pitch. Believe me, this is the Porsche engine. If you get this right, the whole thing works. This is where you're going to use all the USPs that George and Jan and Jed have thought of over the years to give us market advantage. This is it. This is the money shot. So, let me tell you about Payment Sense, Mr. Customer. Now here's where the talented individual salesperson will take the customer down the road without them ever realizing it. The best lead-in is always on cap rates. Now, without getting into too much detail, every single merchant is fearful of two simple things. The first one is that people do not walk into their shop and buy from them. The second one is that all their underlying prices start to go up, and that will have the effect of squeezing their margin, which is not attractive to them, because that will affect their standard of living, or they have to put their retail price up, which has the effect on the first one. People will not walk into their shop and buy. So if you ask the question of a merchant, if all your underlying prices went up, that have an effect on your profit margin or on your retail price, are either of those too attractive to you? They will always say no. So, for example, who do you get your electric from in here? They may well offer you Scottish Gas, Power, one of the big five. You will say, well, do you think these companies will look for any excuse to put your prices up? The answer is always yes. Therefore, if they phoned you up today and said, we're going to give you your unit price of electric fixed, what would your answer be? Everyone says yes. If the next question was, how long do you want it fixed for? They will always say to you, as long as possible. Yeah, because that gives you price protection. Well, that's what we do, Mr. Customer. But not only that, we give you a capped rate, which means that your price will never go up. But should market conditions change and your trading position escalates enormously, or the prices underlying start to fall, there's a reasonable chance that your rate could come down. Therefore, with Payment Sense, you get the best of both worlds. Do you see how that would benefit your business? The answer is always yes. Do you see where that would add value? Do you see why our customers see that as being valuable to their business? They will all say yes. That is the greatest driving force behind how we've created such a large market share in such a large period of time. The unfortunate news, Mr. Merchant, is I cannot fix or cap for as long as possible. I can only do it for a maximum of 60 months. The same applies for all the USPs. 24-hour support, a restaurateur, Mr. Merchant, what would your get out of jail card be if one of your staff phoned you on a Saturday night as you're watching the X Factor and said that the terminal wasn't working? What would you do? You don't know what to do. The same thing applies for till rolls. What would happen if, Mr. Merchant, one of your staff phoned you on a Saturday night when you're watching X Factor and your terminal wasn't working because you ran out of till rolls? Which shop is open to provide till rolls on a Saturday night? All of these USPs can be used to create a need and a want. Through My Local, if someone offered you free advertising, Mr. Merchant, which allowed you to bring in one more customer as opposed to this customer walking into one of your competitors, would you feel better about that? How would you feel, Mr. Merchant, if 500 people were walking around in your area with a piece of plastic in their wallet, which meant they were always going to shop with you and not shop with your biggest competitors? Would you feel good about that? You're always going to say yes. But you then said, and each one of those individuals with a piece of plastic in their wallet had given you £20 of goods and services that you get to part with. Would that put your cash flow in a good position? Of course it would. Well, that's how we can help you. We can help you grow your business by protecting your footfall and by protecting your underlying pricing. The two factors which give merchants the biggest fear: lack of footfall and underlying price increase. Now, at the end of this, it's very, very important that you find out how good your pitch is. There are 3 very simple closes that you will use to discover this. The first one is you will use a negative close. And that negative close is this: having discussed payment sense, Mr. Merchant, and all the things that we can do for you, can you see why we have created such a large market share? Yes, I can. Do you see how the services that we have can add value to your business too? Yes, I can. Good. So, is there anything about payment sense, Mr. Customer, that makes you feel uncomfortable? At this point, if you get a negative response, this means you have to go and practice your pitch around that negativity. Find out what it is, and then practice it so it doesn't become an issue the next time you pitch. If, however, the customer says, no, there's nothing about you that makes me feel uncomfortable, fantastic. You then balance that off by saying, is there anything about us that particularly impresses you? Well, as you know, people are quick to criticise and slow to praise. It's a balancing close. It doesn't really require a massive answer. But most generally, people will say, well, you seem to know what you're doing. However, here's the big close. Here's the belt and braces. So, Mr. Merchant, price aside, because we know the only reason why this merchant will not buy from us now is price. So, price aside, is there any reason why you would not do business with payment sense? It's very important that you don't use words like, can we do a deal? Price aside, will you do a deal with us today? That's an aggressive close. You're not asking the question, do a deal today, do a deal tomorrow. What you're doing is saying, price aside, if price was not an issue, is there any reason why you would not do business with payment sense? Simple, effective, move on. So now we come to price presentation. This is crucial. It's very, very important that through your training, through the academy, you're very, very comfortable with how to price a statement. If the merchant says to you, absolutely no reason why, if the price was right, I would not do business with payment sense, well, if that's the case, Mr. Merchant, the pressure's on me. Let me go see what I can do for you. And if there's a cup of tea going, well, I wouldn't say no. How many cups of tea do you think you're going to get now? Take the statement away, sit down and work out what you can do for it, and in every single case you work it out to the second decimal point, both as a percentage and as a physical amount of money. So let's just play with some numbers here. You work out that the merchant's bill from payment sense would be 19.62% cheaper, and that's £52 a month and 16p, £626.40 a year, and that's £3,132.16 during a lifetime together. That's how you present it. So, Mr. Merchant, here's what I can do for you. I've managed to work out your bill. Now, if this bill had come from payment sense and not from, in this case, WorldPay, it would be, let me ask you, do you want it as a percentage or a physical amount of money? And say, tell you what, I'll give you both. Well, it would be 19.62% lower and what it would be with WorldPay. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Merchant. Is there anywhere else in your business that you know you could save 19.62%? Now, they're all going to say no, I don't believe there is. Fantastic. Well, if you could, Mr. Merchant, you'd be in a very, very strong position, would you not? Of course I would. That works out at being £52.16 per month, £625.30 per year, and during our lifetime together, £3,126.14. Let me ask you the question, Mr. Merchant. How soon do you want that money coming back into your bank account? Standard Neuro-Linguistic Programming tells you the response will be as soon as possible. And again, through Standard Neuro-Linguistic Programming, you will say to them, I'm really sorry, Mr. Merchant, I can't do as soon as possible. How does 3 to 5 days sound? Which again is one of our biggest USPs, which we discussed at the beginning. We had a chat about statements, to which they'll then say, that sounds good. So we come to QuickSign. QuickSign, as I'm sure, is something you're all very comfortable with now. However, you're going to make an assumptive close with this by simply pulling out your tablet and starting to acquire the information that you need to finish your QuickSign document off. Now, at this point, customer will either buy from you or lie to you, either of which are potentially acceptable. If the merchant does not buy from you, you will know they're lying to you because you've done your job the way it should be done and you've maximised your chances of making a sale. However, working on the basis that they wish to buy from you, you open up your tablet, your laptop, iPad, and you start to acquire the information that you need through QuickSign. Very important that you get proof of bank. Very important you get a copy of the switcher statement, take their full name, their date of birth, all the things that the Academy has covered during your training. At this point, you will then send the document out via the email or you will do it on your tablet face. Now, very, very important that you take the customer through this document because all the things that you talked about way back through statement are going to be used in order to solidify this deal. Let me just take you through this QuickSign document, Mr. Merchant. Now, you remember that I discussed with you qualifying and non-qualifying rates. Well, here are the rates that I'm giving you, which allow me to show you the savings that you're making by becoming a Payment Sense customer. Before you were being charged X, now you're being charged Y, and you can see these differences here. I'll guarantee you no customer will ever object to you taking them through that document because when they first came on board with WorldPay, no one did it for them then. You will then tell them about the terminal rental. You will have all your bolt-ins in as part of your deal. And in reality, you can, with great justification, say that the terminal is X, which is the starting price for your terminal, plus all the bolt-ons, all the things that you know about through 24/7, capped rates, PCI DSS charges, and so on, and call that global figure the price of the terminal. However, what we do as a company is break it down for you, Mr. Merchant, so you can see exactly what it is and exactly how it's all put together. Because as I'm sure you can imagine, with WorldPay, they will package their deals in a certain way, and we will package our deals in a certain way. No two firms will do it the same, and we're no different. Here's how it's all put together. Let me just take you through that. Make sure you're comfortable. Now, at that point, you can then begin to sign the document off. Remember to make sure that it's signed fully by full name, not abbreviated name, and then you can push the big button at the bottom and off it goes. Boom. All done. So how do we consolidate? What happens next? This is really, really important because this is how you're going to get referrals. This is how you're going to get more business. So here's what happens next, Mr. Merchant. I will know within the next 2 to 3 days when your terminal is going to arrive. Don't say things like, I will know when you're going to be accepted as a customer, because it's a negative connotation which suggests they might not get to come on board with Payment Sense. Quite simply say, I will know within the next 2 to 3 days when the terminal is coming. It will arrive on site. I will be informed and I'll come along and install it for you. Because you remember you said to me that if somebody had installed your terminal for you way back when we started our conversation, that would be better for you. That's exactly what I'm going to do. If there's any staff that you want to have around, because there could be some slight software changes. By all means, ask them to come along and I'll show them how it works. We'll do a couple of test transactions. I will show you how to do refunds, how to do payments potentially for customers who are not here if it's a takeaway shop. Are we setting up an e-com deal or a Moto, how the Moto and e-com are set up as well, how to use those systems. And I will do all of that for you when I come back in a few days' time. And quite simply say, is that okay? To which the reply will be yes. Now you may well have included switcher packs, which you will bring into the conversation by saying we'll get the switcher pack organised to exit from WorldPay. But in reality, the one thing that you wish to not happen is that they contact WorldPay in advance of you coming back. So a smart move may well be to say, when I come back to see you in a few days' time to install your terminal, I will hold your hand through the whole exit proposal, because in reality it can be from time to time quite complicated. And the last thing that you want to do, Mr. Merchant, as I'm sure you'd agree, is complicate your life. To which they will say, yes, that's fine. This is the point at which your deal is at its most vulnerable. You've sold it well, you've done good paperwork, you've put the whole thing together as a nice package deal, but you've had to show your rates. You've had to let them know the colour of your money. You don't let them go back to WorldPay. You don't let them go back to Global Payments or Barclaycard. Keep them away from that merchant acquirer, because this is when you're at your most vulnerable. Is that okay with you, Mr. Merchant? Absolutely no problem at all. Now, for merchants who live in outlying areas, we have, and for any merchant, we have the ability to provide them with a service with which they can become PCI compliant. As we know, a lot of merchants out there are PCI non-compliant and are quite basically throwing money away. It makes sense to hold our hand through this as well and use that to our advantage. Coming on board with Payment Sense makes you PCI compliant, and the last thing I want to happen is that you become non-compliant. You could use this as an avenue for referrals by quite simply saying, when you're notified that the time has come to become PCI compliant, I will come back in and make sure that you're PCI compliant, go through the form with you, fill in all the questions. In return for that, I would like something from you. And that is, that you think of 3 people who would benefit from the service that you just benefited from. Is that okay with you? Quid pro quo. If I do that for you, will you do that for me? Now, you may get no referrals, you may get 1 referral, you may get 5 referrals. But it's a worthwhile exercise when you feel it merits it. If you feel it merits it by suggesting to the customer that they make a call to us and pay £50 a year, that's fine. However, ask yourself the question, do you wish to knock on doors or do you wish to get referrals? Referrals will most definitely convert at a much higher rate than a standard door knocked and created appointment. Therefore, why not use the services that we provide to your advantage? So, remember, use the framework, break the ice, ask for the statement, never pitch without a statement. Has anyone ever taken you through a statement before, Mr. Merchant? Because I'll tell you, no one has. Ask for permission to pitch. Let me tell you all about Payment Sense, and then I'll ask you what you think. Tell them all about Payment Sense. Talk to them about Payment Sense. Show them the values that we have. This is the whole point of having USPs. USPs allow you to sell on value and close on price. Price presentation, always 2 figures, always a percentage, and always a physical amount of money, and always a physical amount of money monthly, yearly, and over our lifetime together. How soon do you want that money in your bank account, Mr. Merchant? And QuickSign. QuickSign is a fantastic tool to allow you to very, very quickly get the application done, obviously quickly, but at the same time, it allows you to manage the expectations of the customer, because you said 3 to 5 days. How does that sound? QuickSign lets you do it. Use it to your advantage. Get it right first time. And then consolidate. Tell the customer what's going to happen next. Tell them what you can do for them as far as PCI if that's appropriate. And make sure that you go back, do your installation, and you haven't contacted the current provider. Because at this point, you are at your highest chance of losing this deal. And that's the last thing you want to do, having worked so hard to get to this point. Good luck.